Welcome to Context 101. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. On January 6, 2026, the United States Supreme Court struck down President Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs, a move that instantly became one of the most consequential legal decisions of the decade. The announcement sent shockwaves through global markets, triggering immediate reactions from investors, economists, and world leaders alike. The court ruled that Trump had overstepped his executive authority, effectively dismantling the economic fortress his administration had built in 2025 to protect American industries and jobs. This landmark decision challenges the very foundation of Trump's aggressive trade policies and marks a direct check on presidential power, reaffirming the balance between branches of government. For nearly a year, these tariffs reshaped international commerce, forcing a re-evaluation of global supply chains, fueling inflation, and causing uncertainty for businesses and consumers across the country. With a conservative majority, including 3 Trump appointees, the court drew a firm line. Even under a declared national emergency, the president cannot unilaterally rewrite economic laws or bypass Congress. The ruling leaves businesses scrambling to adapt, as companies large and small must now rethink their strategies in a rapidly changing economic landscape. Meanwhile, consumers are hoping for relief from high prices and shortages that have become all too common in recent months, and politicians on both sides of the aisle are seizing the moment to debate America's global role, using the decision as a rallying point for their own visions of the future. The legal and economic impact is immediate, but the political consequences are just beginning to unfold, promising months of heated debate and uncertainty. This is not just the end of a policy, it's the start of a new, uncertain chapter in American history, one that will shape the nation's direction for years to come. The story of this decision is about power, law, and the real-world impact of policy on everyday lives, reminding us that the actions of a few can ripple out to affect millions. To truly grasp the significance of today's Supreme Court ruling, we need to revisit the controversial policy that set these events in motion and examine the extraordinary powers that made it possible. In April 2025, the Trump administration unveiled the so-called Liberation Day tariffs, invoking the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, an act originally designed for national security crises, to justify sweeping new trade restrictions. By declaring a series of national emergencies, the White House rapidly imposed escalating taxes on a wide range of imports, pushing the average U.S. tariff rate to its highest level since 1935, a dramatic shift in American trade policy. The tariffs generated over $215 billion for the U.S. Treasury in just one fiscal year, with President Trump touting them as a major victory for both national security and American industry, claiming they would restore jobs and protect the country from foreign threats. But critics quickly pointed out that the real costs fell on American businesses and consumers, who faced higher prices at the checkout and mounting supply chain disruptions that rippled through the economy. Small manufacturers and large retailers alike complained of lost competitiveness, shrinking profit margins, and higher operational costs, warning that the tariffs threatened their survival. As economic pain mounted, and legal questions about the scope of presidential authority grew louder, the stage was set for a dramatic Supreme Court showdown that would test the limits of executive power. The aggressive strategy split the nation, pitting workers and industries against each other, and sent shockwaves through the economy, making today's high-stakes decision all but inevitable. Ultimately, the legal battle became a referendum not just on trade, but on the very boundaries of presidential power in times of crisis. The Supreme Court's decision was the result of a legal battle led by businesses harmed by the tariffs. Plaintiffs argued Trump had stretched the definition of national emergency to bypass Congress and impose sweeping economic changes. The court's 6-3 majority invoked the major questions doctrine, ruling that only Congress can authorize such significant shifts in trade policy. The justices found that the IEEPA was never meant for broad economic protectionism, but for targeted foreign policy emergencies. Notably, 2 Trump appointees joined the majority, signaling a strong institutional pushback against executive overreach. During oral arguments, justices questioned whether a trade deficit truly constituted an extraordinary threat. This ruling marks a shift. The court, once deferential to Trump's emergency claims, now draws a clear boundary. The decision comes as Trump's approval ratings wane, echoing historical patterns of judicial independence. The court's message is clear. Congress, not the president, holds the power to reshape the nation's economy. The Supreme Court's decision triggered instant volatility in global financial markets, sending shockwaves through trading floors from New York to Tokyo. Investors and analysts scrambled to interpret the implications as uncertainty gripped every major exchange. U.S. stocks for protected industries like steel and aluminum plunged, erasing months of gains in a matter of hours, while import-heavy companies surged on hopes of cheaper goods. The market's rapid shift reflected deep anxieties and new opportunities emerging overnight. The abrupt policy reversal caused chaos in ports and supply chains, with businesses scrambling to adjust pricing and logistics. Shipping companies faced a flood of new orders, while warehouses rushed to update inventory plans and contracts. Currency markets swung wildly, and the US dollar weakened as trading partners anticipated renewed access to American consumers. Investors hedged their bets, bracing for further turbulence in the days ahead. European and Asian markets rallied for exporters, with shares of manufacturing giants climbing sharply. Yet, uncertainty loomed over the sudden shift, as leaders weighed the risks of a rapidly changing global order. For American consumers, the end of tariffs promises lower prices on everyday goods, but not immediately, as supply chains need time to recalibrate. Retailers and suppliers are working overtime to adapt to the new reality. Short-term disruptions are likely, with potential shortages and delays before relief reaches store shelves. The transition period could test the resilience of both businesses and families. The global ripple effects are profound, as companies and governments reassess strategies in a world without Trump's tariff wall. New alliances and rivalries are already beginning to take shape. The decision has created an economic free-for-all, with winners and losers scrambling to adapt. Some companies are seizing new opportunities, while others face tough choices and possible layoffs. The world is watching to see how the U.S. navigates this new landscape, as every move in Washington now reverberates across continents and industries. The stakes for global trade and economic stability have rarely been higher, and the coming weeks will reveal just how far the shockwaves will travel. The Supreme Court's ruling has ignited fierce political debate across the country. President Trump condemned the decision, calling it a blow to national security and prosperity. His allies framed the court's move as a betrayal of American workers, accusing justices of undermining the executive's power to protect the nation. Meanwhile, Democrats and moderate Republicans hail the ruling as a victory for the rule of law and a necessary check on presidential overreach. They argue it restores Congress's constitutional authority over trade and economic policy. The debate now centers on who should control America's economic destiny, the president or Congress. As the nation heads into a contentious political season, this decision will be a defining issue. The legal battle may be over, but the political fight is just beginning. The economic fallout from the Supreme Court's ruling is as dramatic as its legal impact. Domestic industries like steel and manufacturing, once shielded by tariffs, now face renewed foreign competition and potential job losses. The end of tariffs is expected to ease inflation, but the effects may be gradual and uneven. The government loses a major revenue stream, creating a sudden budget gap that must be addressed. The administration faces tough choices: raise new revenue, cut spending, or accept a higher deficit. Global supply chains, already reshaped by the tariffs, are thrown into uncertainty as companies weigh whether to revert to old models or stick with costly new ones. The unpredictability chills long-term investment and planning. The ruling forces a nationwide economic recalibration with winners and losers in every sector. The gamble is over, but the consequences are just beginning to play out. The Supreme Court's decision has real consequences for American families and workers. Consumers, battered by higher prices for nearly a year, may finally see relief as tariffs disappear. But for workers in industries like steel and manufacturing, the end of protection brings anxiety over job security and plant closures. Small businesses caught in the tariff crossfire now have a chance to recover, with more predictable costs and competition. The ruling highlights the personal impact of national policy. What helps one group can hurt another. The divisions remain, but the battle lines have shifted. The challenge ahead is to craft policies that balance competing interests and share the benefits of trade more broadly. The human side of economic policy is more complex than any headline. Legal and economic experts agree. The Supreme Court's ruling is a landmark for the separation of powers. The court's use of the major questions doctrine reasserts Congress's authority and limits executive overreach. Economists largely see the decision as positive for long-term growth. arguing that tariffs hurt consumers and strained global relationships. Some analysts warn, however, that the underlying issues, unfair trade practices and a weakened industrial base, remain unresolved. They call for targeted industrial policy, not blanket tariffs, to support critical sectors. The fact that Trump-appointed justices joined the majority underscores the judiciary's independence. This precedent will shape future battles over presidential power, from trade to immigration and beyond. The ruling's impact will echo for years in both law and policy. The Supreme Court's decision marks a turning point for America's economy and democracy. By overturning Trump's tariffs, the court has rebalanced power between the branches of government. The ruling ends a chapter of economic unilateralism and demands a return to legislative action. For allies and rivals alike, it signals a shift toward more stable, predictable trade policy. The grievances that fueled the tariffs, unfair competition, national security, industrial decline, still need real solutions. This is a constitutional victory, not a partisan one, reaffirming checks and balances at the heart of American democracy. The debates over trade and executive power are far from over. This decision will only intensify them. Every American will feel the effects, from prices at the store to jobs and wages. The responsibility for shaping the future now rests with Congress, and with all of us. The path forward is uncertain, but the conversation about America's economic destiny has only just begun.